Welcome back to the Sports Rock Show.
Rock.
This segment we're going to discuss a little bit of college pigskin. We may get into some pro, not quite sure if we're going to get that far or not. But right now, here's your top 10 BCS standings. Bama at number 1, Florida 2, K-State 3, Oregon 4, Notre Dame 5, LSU 6, Oregon State 7, Oklahoma 8th, USC 9th, and Georgia 10th. Well, I think that there's a general consensus that we all agree that Alabama is going to be one team at the top at the end of the year. Who do we think is going to be right there with them?
Well, I think, quite honestly, it could be an Alabama University of Notre Dame. Fighting Irish have got a long string of tradition. Mr. Kelly is a very good coach, and they play every game to win. And it's a possibility.
I don't think you're going to see it as you saw last year, an all SEC final. I don't think that's going to happen this year. Too many possibilities for those teams to play each other. One, Alabama has to play LSU next week. Though LSU, as well as they play defense, their offense is sketchy at best. Alabama's just a complete football team on both sides of the ball. LSU relies on their defense. They're going to have to play. They do get Alabama in Death Valley, but LSU's going to have to play a fantastic game. Florida is now 2 in the BCS, but Florida will have to face, should Florida win out, and they play Georgia this week in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
I want to be there.
And I think Florida win. Florida is a surprise team if there is any surprise teams in my opinion. I think they were expected to be somewhere in the middle of the pack of the SEC, and right now they're second. I mean, if the season ended today, they'd be playing Alabama for the national championship. Oregon still has games down the road. They still have to play Southern Cal. Surprisingly, Oregon State is another team that plays stout defense. Are they good enough to beat Oregon? Or I don't know if they play Southern Cal off the top of my head. They may even have Stanford on the board. So it's going to be difficult for them. The team that could be on the outside with a chance is Kansas State. Kansas State sits, I believe, 3rd in the BCS.
Yes.
They've already beaten Oklahoma.
Yes.
If Kansas State can win out, because I think the Big 12, I'm not sure the Big 12 still has a championship game. I could be wrong. They may not have a championship game anymore. So if they don't have one, and Kansas State wins out, they're going to be sitting right there. Because if Florida wins out, Florida's going to have to play Alabama in the SEC championship.
Yes.
God bless Florida, but I don't think they're going to beat Alabama.
Could be another situation like last year where you could have number 1 and number 2 face off both in. Well, no, they didn't face off the championship game, but they faced off towards the end of the year and in the championship game.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I just think the SEC is going to drain themselves of. They'll have one team standing, and that's probably Alabama. At least I would think so anyway. But I don't see them having 2 teams standing this year, with the fact that either they're playing each other, and so somebody's going to knock each other out. And there's different teams in the mix this year: Oregon, Oregon State, Notre Dame, all those teams. Kansas State. There's some different teams in the mix that could step right in. If somebody loses and they keep winning, they're going. They're rising up the charts like a Rolling Stone single.
Well, my comment on this is this: Notre Dame plays an independent schedule. Who have they beaten this year already?
Notre Dame?
Ranked teams. Who have they beaten?
Well, they've beaten Stanford. They've beaten Michigan. I don't know if BYU was ranked when they played them. I don't think they were.
I don't think they were either.
No, I don't have a hat on, but if it was, I'd take it off to Notre Dame. They play as good a schedule or better schedule than anybody in the country.
They don't play in a conference.
And usually do. Of course, that's going to change a little bit when they go into the ACC and have to play 5 ACC games a year. That's going to cloud that a little bit because they're dumping.
They'll dominate ACC.
They're dumping Michigan. I think they're dumping Michigan State. And those were rivalry games. So yeah, they'll go into play ACC teams, and that, quite frankly, in the polls, probably will hurt them because outside of whoever they play in the ACC, it could be Clemson. They play Clemson. They play Florida State.
But that's in
then
the future.
you've got pretty good teams there. But if you get to go into the ACC and have to, you play Boston College and you play. Well, I think they do play Boston College usually anyway.
Yes, they do. But that's in the
the
future.
ACC
I'm talking this year. This year, right now. Notre Dame always plays an independent schedule, which, quite honestly, I'm surprised they gave up 5 games to that, which is amazing.
But
I'm sure they were well compensated.
Notre Dame also, they'll play their cream puffs too, and
their
they
cream
allow
puffs are in their division, in my opinion. Was what it
Well,
was.
Notre Dame doesn't have a division.
They usually play.
So-
They used to play all
They
the
don't,
service
no.
academies.
Yes.
I'm not sure
Right.
they play them all.
and
anymore.
they'll struggle with Navy, and that's
Well-
a team that they shouldn't struggle with.
Well, that's
It's a big game for Navy.
Of course it is.
They get up big time.
In years past, that's true. If Notre Dame believes they're on the horizon of being, look at what they're doing now, and you think what Brian Kelly can do in the future with them. Notre Dame's got to be feeling pretty good about themselves.
I'll tell you who.
I think they're on the rise, and I think that might be one of those
I
teams
think
in
Doug-
the national championship.
I think Doug hit a good point earlier whenever he was talking about teams in the BCS. I like Kansas State a lot. I like the way they
State's
play.
tough.
I
They're tough.
think Colin
They're
Klein.
tough. They're
Colin
tough.
Klein is probably the best quarterback in the nation that you're not talking about. Because trust me, this kid has risen up the ranks as far as pro teams are going. He's rising up the Heisman ranks. It is very possible that if Kansas State continues this, wins out, Florida gets tripped up, they could very easily be playing Alabama for a championship. And you could also be looking at Colin Klein maybe being taken ahead of Matt Barkley as far as in the draft, because I think Barkley's fallen off the radar.
Well, Colin Klein is not, in my opinion, an NFL quarterback.
I think it could be.
He's a
college quarterback.
He's a runner.
He's a college quarterback, period.
They play Texas Tech this week.
Yeah.
Kansas State. I'm
Yes,
looking
they
at
do.
Kansas State's schedule. They play Texas Tech at home. They play Oklahoma State at home. They
Okay.
play at TCU, at Baylor, and then home versus Texas.
Those are all winnable games for Kansas State.
I think they're all. There's a lot of.
There's some tough ones on
And
there.
like I said, I don't know for a fact if I want to say the Big 12 does not have a championship game. I could be completely wrong. However, if they do not have a championship game, or maybe if they do, if Kansas State wins out, they will be in line for a national championship game. No
Yes.
question about it.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well,
I
if
agree
Notre
with
Dame
you.
wins out, where do you put that? Where
Listen,
do you figure that at?
Hold on. I agree with you that Florida's been a surprise. I think the
Yes.
surprise the other direction for me has been Florida State. I expected Florida State to have a much better year than they have. They've dropped off the map.
Well, Florida State is usually, even when they had their best teams, they choked the game or two.
Absolutely.
A lot like Virginia Tech.
Yep.
They'd be 3rd or 4th ranked, and then they'd choke a game or
Yep.
two. And the next thing you know, they're fading away. And
Does it surprise you that USC would be 9th at this stage?
they only have one loss.
Right, but
They got a good football team.
But if somebody came to you at the beginning of this season and said that week, 8 or 9 of the college football season,
Yes.
USC would be ranked below
Okay.
Notre Dame, Kansas State, Florida, Oregon State, even to some extent, Oklahoma, what would you have said?
Well, I probably would have assumed that at this point USC would be undefeated.
Absolutely.
They do
Absolutely.
have one loss. However, Southern Cal plays Oregon and they play Notre Dame.
Yes.
So they can control their own destiny. If they
Yes.
beat if USC wins out, even though they have one loss,
They could play in a
They-
national championship
yes.
game. They
Yes.
could. That's very viable.
they'll have a
Very
very
viable.
tasty resume.
Very viable.
Because at that point, if
very viable.
But then you're going to have somebody pissed off in Manhattan, Kansas. So let's just assume Alabama wins out. Let's just assume that.
okay,
I think they will.
Then you've got
Alabama's cream of the
Kansas
crop.
State runs the table. Florida won't run the table because they would
They would've
probably lose to
lost to
Alabama in the
Alabama,
SEC
right.
championship game. So then you have Notre Dame, which still has Oklahoma to play, and Southern Cal to play.
Right.
You've got who we got in fourth and fifth spots.
Fourth is Oregon. Fifth's Notre Dame.
Okay,
Sixth
well,
LSU.
Oregon. There's Oregon that's got Southern
out.
Cal on their schedule. They've got Oregon State
Which is no
in the
slouch.
Civil War.
Who was ranked 7th. by
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah,
it's
so
no slouch.
there is a whole lot. There's a whole lot of football to be played because the big games are yet to come.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. It's kind of
And you
weird.
can't, and don't count. I mean, I'm not saying LSU's going. If LSU runs the table and beats Alabama, all bets are off that they're not in the national championship game.
Well, see, here's the
The
thing.
SEC is going to have somebody in the national championship game.
But see, here's-
One team, maybe not two, but one for sure.
Does this
Whoever
not
wins the SEC is going to be in the national.
Does this not go back to, though, what we've talked about many years ago, though, as having a playoff in college football? Because, quite honestly, we have named how many teams right here
Here's
that could
another
really,
team.
really put a big name on. They have
Another
the
team
right
that might
to
be
play.
creeping into this is Georgia.
Well, Georgia's already.
Georgia's already got, what, 2 losses?
Well, they must have one if they're in the top 10 in the BCS.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they'll have
Okay,
one.
1 loss.
But
They're not there. They're not a figure.
But they're a team that would have to.
They smoked a very good South Carolina team.
They would have to run the
They
table.
would have to run the table and then hope for help. They'd have to have help.
Well, but
Alabama-
hold on though. But listen though, a lot of these teams that are in the top 9 are playing each other not only once but twice. USC is playing
Okay.
2 teams in the top ahead of them.
Is that not more reason why that they should actually have?
No, I'm saying that's more reason why they're beating up on each other, and Georgia might be able to sneak up the ranks. I'm not saying into the championship.
Well,
game.
I would.
I'm not
yeah,
saying they're
okay.
going to be in the championship.
Okay, because
game,
I would say I'm looking at Georgia's schedule right now. Their problem would be, first of all, they'd have to beat Florida,
yes,
and I'm not saying they can or can't do that.
right.
But then they play Mississippi, at Auburn, at Georgia Southern, and at Georgia Tech. That's not going to get them a lot of cold
No, it's not.
No.
It's not. You're
It's not
right.
gonna, it's not gonna push them over the edge. This is more and more reason why get rid of the BCS, which eventually
They already
gonna do that.
did. They got the playoff. We've
need
discussed
the
this
playoff
before.
deal.
Moving on.
But this year, it's only going to help the teams that are going to be big ranked. Alabama's going to really.
Well,
big
I
time-
think
big
right
time,
now,
big time gonna gain.
I
a
think
team like
right now
Oregon.
you're looking
Well-
at you're not going to see a Bama Florida championship game.
No.
No,
It's
no.
not going to happen
No,
because in
it's not
order for
gonna happen.
Florida to make it, they're going to have to beat Alabama, which is going to knock Alabama out.
They're not
And if
gonna-
Alabama wins out, then that means Florida's going to take on a loss late in the season, which is going to knock them out.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you're looking more at this Kansas State, Oregon, Notre Dame range, to be honest with you. Possibly down into USC, just for the fact that who they have left and who they play. They
Well,
can knock some of
USC.
those
I'm looking
teams
at
out of the
Southern
mix.
Cal's schedule.
Right.
This week it's at Arizona. Then they play Oregon.
So they can knock Oregon out.
Then they play Arizona State, UCLA, and then they play Notre Dame.
So they can knock Notre Dame out.
They could.
But what do you do?
So what if
but
Notre
do you
Dame
do?
runs the
Exactly.
table?
If Notre
Notre
no.
Dame runs the
What do you
table.
do if Notre Dame loses only that game?
They'll be out. If Kansas
I
State,
think he's right.
If
I think
Kansas
they would
State,
be
if
out.
Kansas State wins out and they're undefeated, if Notre Dame loses
That's
the game,
true.
they're fucked.
That's true.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the way. Without a playoff,
Absolutely.
that's the way the game's played.
Absolutely. Now, if Notre Dame runs the table with their schedule there, they should be in the championship game. Right or wrong?
Wrong.
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 Why is it wrong?
Because I still think because I don't see Notre Dame, if K-State runs the table, I don't see Notre Dame leapfrogging them. If Oregon runs the table, I don't see Notre Dame leapfrogging them. Do you?
I could possibly see them
Think about
leapfrogging
this.
Kansas State if Notre Dame runs the
Even though
table.
Kansas State's third right now and Notre Dame's fifth?
Yeah, but Notre Dame's got Oklahoma and Southern Cal on the board.
Yeah, they got 2 fucking primo teams to play.
Who's Oregon got left, the big games? USC and who else?
Oregon State.
Okay. Yeah, you may be right about that.
What I'm saying is, this is where more and more the playoff picture comes into play.
There's
Because if Notre Dame runs the table,
Because K-State has the weakest schedule of the top 5, probably.
Yes.
yeah,
Because they've already beaten
Oh.
Oklahoma.
Right.
And Texas
See,
is
that's
nothing.
where it's bullshit that just because you play teams earlier in the season and not down the stretch, you get punished.
Well,
Well,
it's also you're punished. You can lose week 1 and be okay.
Yeah.
You lose week 9 or 10.
You're done.
You're done.
You're done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not fair either. That's where that playoff comes in and
It's
says,
not
well,
fair.
okay,
Yeah.
we'll
Absolutely.
decide who the best one-loss team or whatever is. But
Right.
of course, Kansas State coming off of a blasting of West Virginia,
Yeah.
which would have been a better win on your resume
Yeah.
had West Virginia not got blasted the week
But Texas
before.
Tech, right.
Yes. Yes.
Now, Kansas State plays Texas Tech this week. I don't know what Texas Tech is ranked in.
They're like 20. They're
In the
low.
BCS.
They're low 20s, like 23rd, 25th.
Yeah,
something
so
like
I mean,
that.
it's a nice win because they are BCS ranked, but it's not a high BCS ranking win.
Right.
Well, see, this is where we come into a problem. Alabama comes through. Oklahoma State comes through. Well, it wouldn't be Oklahoma State.
Now, if Alabama
Well,
loses to
Oklahoma
LSU,
will not come through. LSU,
Shit.
there's a team that's never should be left out of the picture.
If Alabama loses
Never.
to LSU,
If Alabama loses LSU, which they
I
play
think either way, if Alabama loses, well, then again, though, if Alabama loses to LSU and then turns around and beats Florida, that could be enough to keep them in the game.
Alabama loses to LSU, they might not be in the SEC championship game.
Oh, that's a good-
As LSU.
that's a good point.
Exactly.
So if
exactly.
so if Alabama loses to LSU, they would be and then doesn't play in the conference championship game. They'd be a one-loss team. If then I would assume what LSU would play Florida. Well, no, LSU already plays.
LSU's already lost to Florida.
Right, but would they play them again for the championship?
Yeah, because they'd be in a different. They're in a different division.
So then, if Florida would be number 1 then. But if LSU beats Florida and Alabama, do they leapfrog everybody and go to number 1 or 2?
If LSU continues, well, they don't play this week. They play next week home against Alabama. What's LSU, 6th?
Yeah.
BCS?
Yeah.
Alabama's
Well,
one.
if they beat
If
Alabama,
they beat Alabama, they're going
They're-
to move
they're
way
stacked.
up.
They're
gonna way up.
gonna. They would probably jump Notre. They'd probably jump Notre.
Where's
Dame
that game at, Doug?
Death Valley, LSU.
Oh my
That could move
goodness.
LSU up to 3rd.
What
I
a great
could
game
see
to
them
watch.
jumping Notre Dame and
That'd be
Oregon up to
interesting
3rd.
one.
So that would slide Florida to 1, K-State to 2, LSU to 3.
But Notre Dame's got
They're still
Oklahoma.
exactly Notre Dame.
and Oklahoma's what, 8th in the BCS?
As of right now.
Yeah, well,
If Notre Dame wins out, see, this is where you're.
No, you're not, because Notre Dame. It doesn't matter if Notre Dame wins out.
Who do
I
they
still
play
don't
the
see
rest of
them.
the year?
Notre Dame, in order for them to make it to the championship game, they would
They have to win out.
They would have to win out, and they would need. I think, to be honest with you, they would need both Florida and Alabama to lose.
I'm not so sure about that.
well, one of Florida is probably going to lose to Alabama. If Florida,
Right.
and Florida could lose to Georgia. I mean, there's no guarantee.
I don't
in any
see.
game.
I don't see a scenario happening with Notre Dame because Florida and Alabama are not both.
Well, I'm telling you right now, you
Well-
can bank on the SEC champion being in the championship game.
Yes,
Who they play is a different ballgame.
I think
it's not out of
Notre Dame.
question.
I
It could
think
be Notre Dame if they went out.
Notre Dame needs both. I think they need 3 of the top 4 teams to lose in order for them to make it.
I don't think Notre Dame can jump Oregon if they stay undefeated.
Okay.
Because they'll have beaten Southern Cal and they'll beaten Oregon State.
So
I
basically,
don't think they can jump them.
So basically, what you're looking at then is Oregon playing Alabama.
I'd say
Who's
that's
championship?
I'd say that's a big possibility. That's
Which,
the
in
main-
my
or Florida.
opinion,
Or
is this.
Florida.
Oregon's got fucked so many times they deserve a right to do it, and they've got hosed. I don't know how many
Well,
times.
they just
They've
played.
got
They just
those.
played in it what
Yeah,
2
they
years
just,
ago.
yeah, they just didn't they win it?
Championship?
They
No,
lose.
no,
Yeah, they
lost
did
to,
lose. You're right.
they didn't win. No, but for the most part, they've
LSU, was it?
gotten overlooked.
They lose to LSU?
And you're right. If they
Was it LSU that beat them?
They get smoked.
I can tell you right now, it's an SEC team.
oh yeah,
Might have
No.
been. Might have been Alabama.
Might have been Auburn. Was that Cam Newton's year? 2 years
Auburn.
ago would have been
Yeah,
Cam
it was
Newton's year.
Auburn.
Yeah,
it was Auburn. Yeah,
Because the
Auburn.
SEC, since they created the BCS, the SEC's won it every year.
yeah.
And I'll go out on a limb and say the SEC wins it again.
Oh, the talent.
Wow, what a shaky limb you're going out on.
If I had to make a pick, I'll take the SEC against the field.
All right, that'll do it for this segment of Sports Rocks.
Rock.
Join us for our next segment. We will do some pick'em.
Pick 'em.